You know, what if I told you that the single most important skill for financial success has nothing to do with your IQ or your education? It's not about what you know, it's about how you think about your own thinking.
Right off the bat, let's just tear down a huge assumption we all have. We're taught to believe that the secret to getting wealthy is just knowing more stuff. More data, more analysis, more facts than the next person. But just think about that for a second. If raw knowledge was really the only thing that mattered, then shouldn't every PhD in economics, every single top financial analyst be a billionaire? And we all know that's just not the case. I mean, some of the most educated people out there lose absolute fortunes, while folks with way less formal training build empires. So clearly something else is going on here. This is the big question, isn't it? If it's not about being a genius, and it's not about a fancy degree, what is this invisible skill that really separates the financial winners from the losers? Well, here's the crazy part. The problem often starts with the very people who should have an advantage, smart people. Their biggest strength, their own mind, can actually become their biggest blind spot. And this is where it gets really fascinating. We love to think of our minds as these perfect, rational computers, these logic machines, but they're not. They're survival engines, built over thousands of years to make split-second decisions to keep us alive. It's a system built for speed and instinct, not for perfectly analyzing a stock chart. And this quote just nails the shift we have to make. The solution isn't to think harder, it's to actually step back and watch ourselves think. It's about becoming an observer of your own mind. So, if the name of the game is self-observation, what's the tool we use to do it? This brings us to the hero of our story today, metacognition. So what on earth is it? Put simply, metacognition is the ability to think about your thinking. It's like being the manager of your own mind. A manager who doesn't just accept every thought at face value, but instead asks, hey, wait a minute, where did that idea even come from? Now, you might be thinking, hold on, isn't this just emotional intelligence? And that's a great question, but no, not quite. Emotional intelligence is about understanding what you feel. Metacognition is a whole level above that. It's understanding the architecture of your thoughts, why your mind is even generating that feeling or that conclusion in the first place. And to really get why this is so critical, we have to meet the villains of the story, the mind's invisible enemies, which we know as cognitive biases. Look at this list. These aren't personal flaws, okay? These are just universal features of being human. Take confirmation bias, our tendency to only look for info that proves what we already believe. Or loss aversion. You know that feeling when losing 20 bucks feels way, way worse than the joy of finding 20 bucks? That's it. This list goes on, and every single one of these is silently messing with our decisions every day. So here's the crucial point. You can't just delete these biases. But with metacognition, you can see them coming. They stop being these invisible enemies that attack you from the shadows, and they become visible obstacles that you can actually navigate around. Awareness is the first step to control. So what does all this awareness get you? It creates the most valuable thing in any decision-making process: distance. See, without metacognition, most of us are stuck in this loop right here. Something happens, we have an immediate emotional reaction, our brain scrambles to find a logical-sounding reason to justify that reaction, and then we repeat the same mistake over and over again. But a metacognitive thinker? They operate in a completely different loop. They observe their reaction. They analyze why it's happening. They adjust their approach, and they improve over time. It's this compounding loop of self-correction. It's like your own personal evolution engine. And that right there is the whole ball game. Metacognition creates this tiny little pause between a market event and your response to it. And in that tiny gap, that's where strategy lives. That's the difference between panic selling and being patient, between just reacting and actually thinking. So what does this actually look like? Well, a metacognitive investor stops asking, is this a good investment? And starts asking much better questions like, okay, how do I know this is good? What am I assuming here? They turn the spotlight inward. Am I getting excited about this just because everyone else is? Is that herd behavior? Is confirmation bias making me totally ignore the risks? How much of this is emotion just pretending to be analysis? And finally, they ask the most powerful, most humbling question of all. What if I'm wrong? That question, all by itself, is the antidote to the overconfidence that destroys so many portfolios. Okay, let's bring all this home. In a world of AI and algorithms, you might be thinking the human mind is becoming obsolete. But that's where you'd be wrong. I mean, this table says it all. Can an AI analyze data better than a human? Check. Predict patterns? Check, no contest. But then, look at these bottom two rows. An AI cannot question its own reasoning. It can't examine its own programmed biases. It cannot step outside its own code. But you can. So in a world that is drowning in data, your real financial edge isn't your processing power. It's the uniquely human ability to question that process, to see your mind not as the absolute truth, but as this incredibly powerful tool that you can learn to master. True wealth doesn't start with a stock tip. It starts with a simple but profound question you can ask yourself every single day. Why did I think that? The moment you can answer that honestly, you're no longer just a passenger in your own mind. You're the pilot. And that right there changes everything.